What's the link there?
Um, so I talk about that because one of the things I really look at is what I call ADHD plus one, which is the idea that we have ADHD and then often there's something else going on. And for me and for a lot of people, that's grief, whether it's, grief from a death, grief from loss of a situation, some other loss of a dream, whatever you're grieving, because it can be many things. But grief does things to your brain. When you talk about grief brain, widow brain, it can be hard to concentrate. It can be hard to manage your emotions. It can be hard to motivate yourself. And so if you have those with ADHD and then you have them again with the grief, it just piles on top of each other and it makes it more. And for doctors, for yourself, it can be hard to pull it apart. And in some
Mm.
ways you want to pull it apart. And in some ways you just want to accept, like, okay, I'm having a really hard time remembering things right now. I started off with ADHD and I'm just in this grief process. So what strategies can I use and what kind of comfort can I give myself? You know?
Add another list to the lists that you already write.
Yes. There is that.
Yes. You're writing, thinking about grief, you're writing a book about your first year of
Mhm.
widowhood. So what does grief look like when your brain, you're struggling to regulate emotion? How's it been for you? Are you able to share any on that?
Um, sure. Like I said, it makes everything more. And when you're in the middle of something, it can be hard to figure out what is what. And unless you've been through a lot of grief, you don't know what grief is like, especially widow grief until you're there. And so it can just seem like everything piling up on top of you. So for my example, my husband died and all of a sudden there's this huge list of all these things that have to be taken care of and done. And in my normal pre-widow ADHD life, managing all of that could be a lot. And so it makes it more. So it's things that helped where sometimes I would feel like there's just too much. And so a friend would come over and we would just list out everything that I believed had to be done, which could be like a 3-page list. And then we would, prioritize and cross things off and she'd say, well, I can do this. And why don't you ask this person to do that? And no, you don't really have to do that, but let's put this at the top of the list. And so having somebody else who was aware of both the grief and the ADHD to be able to take this list and make it manageable and doable was
Mm.
something that was really helpful, which yes, people who are grieving need help with that and people with ADHD need help with that. But when you add, like with grief, there's always external circumstances, right? Whether you've lost your job, your house, your spouse, your whatever, there's all these other things that you have to deal with. And so it adds to the list.
Mm.
You lost your job, you have to find a new job, you have to maybe find money, you know, and so it adds to it.
Yeah.